close your eyes, take a deep breath. Let the noise of the modern world dissolve and travel with me, not to another planet, but to our own world, in a time almost beyond imagining. We are 100,000 years in the past. The earth breathes to a different rhythm. Vast golden savannas stretch as far as the eye can see, dotted with lonely acacia trees. To the north, gargantuan walls of ice, the great glaciers of the Ice Age, advance and retreat with the slowness of eons, carving the very face of the planet. At night, the sky is a sight we have lost. Without the veil of light pollution, the Milky Way spills from one horizon to the other, a river of diamonds on a velvet of infinite black. The silence is broken only by the wind, by the distant call of a nocturnal creature. But what if, amidst these primordial landscapes, nestled in a forgotten valley, or on an island the sea has since reclaimed, there was something more, not just survival, but sophistication, a hidden, advanced society, long since erased by the sands of time? Tonight, we will not seek definitive answers. We will seek something deeper, the wonder of possibility. So, allow your mind to quiet. Allow the walls of your room to fade away. Join me on this journey of imagination, a deep dive into what might have been. To begin this journey, we must first recalibrate our sense of time. The human mind is not built to grasp the chasm that is 100,000 years. We measure our lives in days and seasons, our history in centuries. But the earth keeps a different kind of time. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing before a library that contains the complete story of our planet. Each book in this library has 1,000 pages, and each page represents one full century. You walk past shelves overflowing with these heavy volumes. The first books tell a story of fire and chaos, a molten planet slowly cooling under a toxic sky. You walk further. 1,000 books later, you find the first hints of microbial life, a story told in whispers of chemistry in the deep oceans. The tale is agonizingly slow. For shelf after shelf, book after book, the story is one of single cells. You walk for what feels like an eternity, past tens of thousands of volumes. Finally, you reach a section where the pages explode with diversity, the Cambrian explosion. Strange and wonderful creatures fill the pages. You pass the age of fishes, the rise of the great forests, and then the towering epoch of the dinosaurs. Their reign fills thousands of pages, a vast collection of books detailing a world utterly alien to our own. You see the thin, dark line on a single page that marks their sudden end, and still you walk on. More volumes detailing the rise of mammals. Finally, in the very last book, on the very last shelf, you find the story of humanity. You flip to the last few pages of this final book. The pyramids of Giza are built on the last paragraph of the last page. The Roman Empire is a single sentence. Your own life is less than a speck of ink on the final word. We are looking for a lost civilization 100,000 years ago. In this library, that means we are searching for a story written a full book before the one we are in now. A completely separate volume with 1,000 centuries of its own, now lost from the shelf. This is the abyss we are peering into. Not just a gap in history, but a chasm of geology. The greatest obstacle to our search is the simple, brutal fact that the Earth is not a static museum. It is a living, breathing, and profoundly violent system that is constantly erasing its own past. Our planet is the ultimate revisionist historian. Consider the ice 100,000 years ago. Much of the world was in the grip of a great ice age. We think of glaciers as rivers of ice, but they were continents of it. Sheets of ice, miles thick, covered vast portions of North America, Europe, and Asia. The sheer weight of this ice is unimaginable, pressing down on the land, depressing the very crust of the earth. And these glaciers moved. They were not static. They flowed with a terrifying, inexorable slowness, acting as the world's largest grinding wheel. They scraped the land down to the bedrock, scouring away mountains, carving deep valleys, and pushing entire ecosystems into the sea. Anything that stood in their path, a mountain, a forest, or perhaps a city, would have been pulverized into dust and rock, its remains scattered across thousands of miles and buried under tons of glacial debris. It would be less like finding a needle in a haystack and more like finding a specific grain of sand on a vast beach. Then there is the movement of the land itself. The ground beneath our feet feels solid, permanent, but it is not. The Earth's crust is a fractured jigsaw puzzle of tectonic plates floating on a sea of molten mantle. These plates are constantly in motion, crashing into each other, pulling apart, and sliding one beneath the other. This process, subduction, is the planet's recycling system. A civilization built on a plate margin could, over 100,000 years, be dragged down into the Earth's mantle, its materials melted and remade into new rock. Its legacy would not be buried. It would be unwritten from existence, its very atoms reassigned to the planetary core. Coastlines rise and fall. Earthquakes shatter landscapes. Volcanoes pave entire regions in molten rock, creating a new surface, pristine and sterile. Even in the calmest parts of the world, a quieter, but no less certain, erasure is always at work. The endless cycle of wind and rain. Water is the universal solvent. Over millennia, it wears down the mightiest of stones, turning mountain ranges into gentle hills. The wind carries sand that sandblasts surfaces into featurelessness. Rivers change course, washing away the land, depositing layers of silt that entomb everything. The oceans, with their relentless tides and corrosive salt, are a graveyard for the coast. Any coastal metropolis, no matter how grand, would be battered, submerged, and consumed by the sea. Let us conduct a thought experiment. If our own global civilization were to vanish today, what would be left in 100,000 years? Our skyscrapers of steel and glass would be the first to go. Steel is an ephemeral alloy. It rusts. In a few centuries, our great bridges and towers would be skeletal remains. In a few thousand years, they would be reddish-brown stains in the soil. Our vast cities of concrete would last longer, but not forever. Water would seep into cracks, freeze, and expand, breaking them apart from within. Plants would reclaim them. Roots would shatter foundations. In 10,000 years, a city like New York or Tokyo would be a series of strange, overgrown, geometrically shaped hills. In 100,000, after an ice age or two, it might only be a faint, anomalous layer in the rock. And what of our knowledge, our art, our literature, our science? The vast majority of it now exists in its most fragile form yet, as a magnetic charge on a spinning platter or a state in a silicon chip. The cloud is not an ethereal, timeless plane. It is a collection of physical servers in a climate-controlled warehouse. Without a power grid, without constant maintenance, our entire digital legacy would decay into unintelligible noise in less than a century. Our books and artworks, made of paper and canvas, would rot and decay even faster. The most enduring legacies we leave behind might be the most accidental. The fossilized layer of microplastics we have embedded in the sediment, the strange isotopes from our nuclear to sediment activities, and perhaps the monumental carvings on Mount Rushmore, which might, if lucky, survive as unnaturally symmetrical patterns on a weathered cliff face. Our tombstone would be written in pollution and erosion. This is the weight of time we are up against. The earth does not preserve, it digests. The default state of history is to be forgotten. The absence of evidence, therefore, is not proof that a civilization didn't exist. It is the expected outcome. So, our search must be for something that defies this process. Something so strange, so out of place, that it could not be the work of nature alone. We are not looking for ruins. We are looking for glitches in the geological record. We must become planetary detectives, hunting for the ghost in the machine. We must look for the scars, the chemical fingerprints, the faint, persistent whispers that 100,000 years of silence could not completely erase. Having faced the humbling abyss of deep time, our perspective must shift. An architect looks for foundations, a historian for texts. We have neither. We must learn to see the world as a planetary detective would, treating every geological oddity, every mythological echo, as a potential clue in a cold case 100,000 years old. We are no longer looking for a civilization. We are looking for its ghost. Our first field of investigation is the most fundamental, the stone and soil of the earth itself. The planet's surface is a manuscript, written and rewritten over eons by the relentless hand of natural forces. Our task is to read between the lines, searching for a single word that is out of place. Let us travel in our minds to the coastal waters of Japan and dive beneath the waves. Here, off the coast of Yonaguni, lies a mystery in sandstone. As we descend, the light filtering through the water reveals an astonishing sight, a colossal structure the size of a pyramid that seems to challenge its natural origins. We see vast, flat terraces stepping down into the blue depths. We see lines and edges so straight, corners so sharp, they feel like the work of a chisel, not a current. We can trace what appears to be a path, a retaining wall, even a feature that divers have nicknamed the turtle. Geologists present a compelling case that this is all a spectacular trick of nature, the predictable fracturing of sandstone in an earthquake-prone region. And for the rational mind, this is the most sensible conclusion. It requires no leaps of faith. But our journey tonight is one of wonder, not just rationality. Let us float before this silent, submerged enigma and ask the question: what if we are witnessing a lost form of construction? A technique that does not impose itself upon the landscape, but works in harmony with it. A civilization that saw the potential in a natural rock formation and chose only to enhance it, to carve and shape it just enough to serve their purpose, knowing the sea would one day reclaim it, and the lines between their work and the work of nature would blur into ambiguity. This would be the ultimate act of humility, an architectural whisper that could endure for millennia, precisely because it never shouted. From the depths of the ocean we now ascend, rising high above the earth until the continents themselves come into view. Our eyes are drawn to a stunning anomaly in the featureless expanse of the Mauritanian desert. The Richet structure, the Eye of the Sahara, a series of almost perfect concentric rings stretching 25 miles across, so symmetrical it defies belief. Again, geology provides a clean explanation. It is a deeply eroded geological dome, its layers peeling back over millions of years. But from this orbital perspective, we can appreciate a different kind of possibility. We see the Nazca lines in Peru, vast geoglyphs visible only from the sky. They prove that ancient peoples had a desire to create art on a geological canvas. The Eye of the Sahara is orders of magnitude larger, but could the principle be the same? Could a civilization with advanced technology and an understanding of planetary science have created Dor, as with Yonaguni, enhanced such a feature as a landmark, a message, or perhaps even a component in a planetary scale machine whose function is far beyond our comprehension? The sheer scale of such an undertaking is a form of evidence in itself. It hints at a power and perspective that is utterly alien to our recorded history. Our second line of inquiry pulls us from the grand scale of the earth to the small scale of human hands and human minds. We search for echoes, not in the rock, but in the artifacts and memories that have somehow survived the great filter of time. Imagine sifting through the wreckage of a 2,000-year-old Roman shipwreck. Most of the artifacts are familiar amphory statues, coins, but then you find a single calcified lump of bronze. For decades, it sits in a museum, dismissed as a piece of a statue or a naval instrument. It is only when X-rays peer inside that the astonishing truth is revealed. Within that lump is a universe of complexity, a system of more than 30 intricate, hand-cut bronze gears, arranged in a system so sophisticated it could predict the cycles of the sun and moon, the positions of the planets, and even the timing of the Olympic Games. This is the Antikythera mechanism. It is a technological orphan. Nothing approaching its complexity appears in the historical record for another 1,000 years. It is like finding a jet engine in a medieval blacksmith's shop. The immediate question is not, is it 100,000 years old? But from what tradition did it arise? Sophistication like this does not spring from a vacuum. It implies generations of accumulated knowledge, of trial and error, of master craftsmen teaching apprentices. The Antikythera mechanism might be the last surviving gear of a vast, forgotten engine of knowledge, a tradition that was almost entirely wiped from the slate of history, leaving behind only this one miraculous ghost. If a technology can leave a ghost, can a civilization leave a memory? If an advanced society was wiped out by a global cataclysm, surely the survivors, our distant ancestors, would have told the story. That story would be passed from generation to generation, and like a message whispered down a long line, it would become distorted. Details would be lost, facts would become metaphors, and history would dissolve into myth. Could this be the origin of the near-universal myth of a golden age or a lost world? Plato gave us the most famous version with Atlantis, a technologically and spiritually advanced empire in perfect harmony, destroyed overnight by earthquakes and floods. But it is not the only one. In India, the Vedic texts speak of the yugas, great cycles of time, and insist that we are living in the Kali Yuga, the last and most degraded age, and that a far more enlightened age, the Satya Yuga, existed in the distant past. The Aztecs spoke of the 5 suns, a series of worlds, each with its own kind of humanity, each destroyed by a cataclysm. The first world was destroyed by jaguars, the second by wind, the third by a rain of fire, the fourth by water. It is profoundly compelling that cultures with no contact all chose to begin their story in the same way, by saying, "What we are now is a shadow of what we once were." Are these all just coincidences of human imagination? Or are they the fragmented, dreamlike memories of a single, real event? A shared, planet-wide trauma, so ancient that all that survives is a deep-seated feeling that we are living among the ruins of a forgotten greatness. Our final hunt is the most difficult. It takes place in the invisible world of chemistry and data. If a global industrial civilization existed, it would have been a chemical force of nature, and it would have left a fingerprinter technosignature in the geological strata. To find it, we must read the most detailed history books on Earth. The ice cores drilled from the heart of Antarctica and Greenland. These cores contain air bubbles, tiny, trapped samples of ancient atmospheres. A spike in carbon dioxide or methane from 100,000 years ago could signify massive, unnatural burning. The sediment layers at the bottom of the ocean tell a similar story. We can analyze them for trace elements. A sudden global layer of heavy metals like copper, lead, or zinc could point to industrial-scale mining and smelting. A thin layer of unusual radioactive isotopes like plutonium-244 could be the signature of a civilization that had mastered nuclear energy. This is the very premise of the Silurian Hypothesis, the scientific thought experiment that asks this exact question. And its conclusion is that such a signature would be incredibly subtle and easy to miss. A layer of plastic pollution, a technofossil, might be the most obvious sign. But after millions of years, even this would be just a thin layer of carbonaceous shale. We have not yet found such an unambiguous signal, but we have only just begun to look. We have read but a few pages of the planet's vast chemical diary, and there are other, stranger questions to ask. What if their industry was biological? Could they have practiced genetic engineering, creating organisms whose fossilized remains would baffle paleontologists? The discovery of a single fossilized creature with a biology that defies the known paths of evolution could be a clue more profound than any pyramid. So, our forensic file is now open. It contains blurry photographs of stone structures that flirt with intelligent design. It contains the schematics of a machine that should not exist. It contains the dreamlike testimony of our most ancient myths. And it contains the chemical analysis of a planet that may yet reveal its deepest secrets. None of this is proof. It is a collection of whispers, of maybes, of tantalizing questions, but it is enough. It is enough to build a case for the possibility. To take this case any further, however, we must ground these speculative threads in the hard logic of science. We must ask, what are the real-world rules that govern the rise and fall of civilizations on a cosmic scale? Our forensic file lies open. It is a collection of shadows and whispers, of geological oddities and mythological echoes. But for these possibilities to transcend mere fantasy, they must be tested. We must now step out of the field of speculation and into the laboratory of established science. Our journey requires an anchor, a grounding in the principles that govern our universe. We must ask not just what if, but how could it be? Does the idea of a lost industrial civilization fit within our understanding of geology, cosmology, and history? Or does it break the fundamental rules? The answers we may find are as astonishing as the question itself. For a long time, this question was the domain of fiction writers and fringe theorists. But in 2018, the conversation changed. Adam Frank, an astrophysicist, and Gavin Schmidt, the director of the NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies, published a formal thought experiment in the International Journal of Astrobiology. They called it the Silurian Hypothesis. Their work was an act of intellectual courage, taking a question from the periphery and placing it directly under the rigorous lens of modern science. Their central premise was to assume a civilization, much like our own, had existed on Earth not thousands, but millions of years ago during the Silurian period, over 400 million years in the past. They then asked, what, if anything, would be left of it today? Their first conclusion was a stark confirmation of our greatest obstacle. Direct evidence would be non-existent. The forces of our living planet are simply too powerful. We must remember that the fossil record is an infinitesimal fraction of all life that has ever existed. The conditions for fossilization are incredibly specific and rare. The odds of a single individual from a past civilization becoming a fossil are astronomically low. The odds of their buildings, their machines, their tools, effectively zero. Over millions of years, continental plates are subducted into the mantle and melted into magma. Ice ages grind continents down to their bedrock. Erosion wears mountains into dust. The planet, they concluded, would have erased virtually all physical traces. So, Frank and Schmidt turned their attention to the indirect evidence, the global fingerprint. The technosignature an industrial civilization would leave upon the planet as a whole. They created a checklist for future geologists. First, the carbon cycle. Our civilization is powered by burning fossil fuels, releasing vast quantities of ancient carbon into the air. This changes the isotopic balance of carbon in the atmosphere, a change that gets locked into sedimentary rock. A past civilization doing the same would leave a similar isotopic spike, a sudden, anomalous shift in the carbon record that would look to a geologist like a planetary fever. Next, they considered the byproducts of industrial life. Our global agricultural system depends on nitrogen-based fertilizers, fundamentally altering the planet's nitrogen cycle. This, too, leaves an isotopic signature. Our electronics, batteries, and industrial processes concentrate and distribute rare earth elements across the globe. A thin layer of sediment rich in lithium, cobalt, or neodymium found globally would be profoundly unnatural. And then there are our most persistent creations, synthetic chemical compounds like plastics and PCB. Over millions of years, these would break down, but they would degrade into specific molecular fossils, a kind of carrigan that would have no natural source. Finding such a molecular signature would be like finding a sentence written in a language the universe had never used before. Finally, they considered the most dramatic possibility, a nuclear signature. A civilization that had mastered nuclear fission, whether for energy or for war, might leave behind traces of isotopes like plutonium-244 or curium-247. These isotopes have very long half-lives, but are not produced in any significant quantity by natural events like supernova. To find a concentrated layer of them in the geological record would be an almost unambiguous sign of a predecessor who had unlocked the power of the atom. The Silurian hypothesis does not say that such a civilization existed. It provides something far more powerful, a scientifically valid framework for the search. It tells us that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It transforms our quest from a romantic fantasy into a testable hypothesis. This terrestrial question of a lost intelligence on our own world is a powerful echo of one of the greatest and most humbling questions in all of science, the Fermi paradox. In 1950, while discussing the statistical likelihood of alien life, the physicist Enrico Fermi asked a simple but universe-altering question: where is everybody? The logic is unassailable. Our galaxy contains up to 400 billion stars. We now know that most of them have planets. Even if a tiny fraction of those planets are in the habitable zone, that leaves billions of worlds where life could arise. The universe is over 13 billion years old. There has been more than enough time for countless civilizations to arise, evolve, and spread across the galaxy. Yet, when we look up at the night sky, we are met with a profound and deafening silence. We can apply this same logic to the history of our own planet. Life has been here for nearly 4 billion years. Our own industrial age has existed for a mere 200. If we were to compress the entire history of life on Earth into a single 24-hour day, our technological civilization would appear in the last millisecond before midnight. Why then, why us? In all that vast ocean of time, are we truly the only creature to have ever built a radio, written a poem, or looked up at the stars and asked this question? This is the terrestrial Fermi paradox. The most compelling and chilling proposed solution to the paradox is the concept of a great filter. The great filter is a hypothetical barrier that is so immensely difficult to overcome that it prevents almost all life from achieving a long-lasting, observable, technological stage. The question is, where is that filter in the timeline of life? Is it behind us, perhaps? Perhaps the initial leap from non-life to life, or from simple prokaryotic cells to complex eukaryotic cells, is so fantastically improbable that it has only happened once. In this optimistic view, we have won the cosmic lottery. We are the first, and the universe is our inheritance. But what if the great filter is ahead of us? This is a far more ominous possibility. This would mean that the path of technological civilization is itself a trap. It suggests that the process of developing industry and global reach inevitably leads to a point of self-destruction. The filter could be the discovery of nuclear power, which almost always leads to self-annihilation. It could be runaway climate change, where a civilization inevitably exhausts its planet's resources and triggers an irreversible environmental collapse. It could be an unforeseen consequence of a future technology, like artificial intelligence or nanotechnology. If this is true, then the silence of the cosmos is not an empty stage, but a graveyard, and the silence in our own geological record could mean that we are simply the latest in a potential series of predecessors who reached this very point and failed to pass through the filter. If a civilization fails to pass the filter, what does that failure look like? The end does not need to be slow. It can be brutally, unimaginably fast. The Earth is a tranquil home, but it is capable of extraordinary violence. Picture a supervolcano like the one that lies dormant beneath Yellowstone. An eruption from such a caldera would not be a mountain exploding. It would be a continent convulsing. It would eject thousands of cubic kilometers of ash and sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, shrouding the planet in a dark veil that would reflect sunlight back into space. A volcanic winter would descend. Global temperatures would plummet. Photosynthesis would fail on land and in the sea. The entire global food chain would collapse. A civilization dependent on agriculture and interconnected trade would starve in the darkness and the cold. Now picture a threat from above. An asteroid, just a few miles wide, strikes the ocean. The initial blast would trigger tsunamis miles high, scouring entire coastlines clean. The impact would vaporize a column of the Earth's crust and ocean, sending a plume of superheated rock and water vapor into the atmosphere. This ejecta would rain back down across the globe, its friction heating the air to oven-like temperatures, igniting global firestorms. And after the fire would come the cold of an impact winter, a long, dark period that could last for decades, wiping out all but the most tenacious forms of life. This is not speculation. This is the history of our planet. This is what happened to the dinosaurs. And there are other, more exotic ends. A nearby gamma-ray burst from a dying star could blast our side of the planet with radiation, stripping away our ozone layer and exposing the surface to sterilizing cosmic rays. A sudden reversal of the Earth's magnetic field could leave us similarly unprotected. These are low-frequency but high-impact events. Over a timeline of hundreds of thousands of years, the improbable becomes the inevitable. These theories give us a framework for plausibility. They show how a civilization could rise and how it could be erased. But there is one final, critical piece of this puzzle. It is a lesson in humility, delivered from a dusty hilltop in modern-day Turkey. It is the discovery of Göbekli Tepe. For generations, the established story of humanity was simple and linear. About 10,000 years ago, humans invented agriculture. This allowed them to settle in one place, which led to the formation of complex societies, which then developed religion, politics, and monumental architecture. Then Göbekli Tepe was unearthed. It consists of multiple rings of colossal T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing over 15 tons, all intricately carved with scenes of predators and abstract symbols. This was built by people we once called primitive hunter-gatherers. Göbekli Tepe single-handedly reversed our understanding. It suggests that it was the shared belief and the desire to build something magnificent that brought people together first, and that this societal complexity then led to the invention of agriculture to feed the workers. It is a discovery so profound that it proves that our entire timeline of human civilization was fundamentally flawed. We were not just wrong on the details, we were wrong on the whole story, and after its use, for reasons we may never understand, its builders deliberately and carefully buried their entire temple under tons of earth, preserving it for the millennia. This is the final, crucial anchor for our journey tonight. The lesson of Göbekli Tepe is the lesson of humility. It is a stark reminder that the book of our past is not a finished text. It is a manuscript full of missing pages and undeciphered chapters. If we were so profoundly mistaken about what was happening just 11,000 years ago, how can we be so certain about what was or was not happening 100,000 years ago? So the case is made, and it rests on 4 pillars. The Silurian Hypothesis gives us a scientific framework for the search. The Fermi Paradox provides the cosmic and philosophical context for the question. The reality of global catastrophes gives us the myriad weapons for a planetary-scale erasure, and Göbekli Tepe stands as a monumental testament to our own ignorance of the deep past. The question of a lost civilization is no longer mere fantasy. It has become a valid and profound space for intellectual wonder. Our expedition, tonight, comes to its inevitable close. It has been a descent, a long and winding spiral into the abyss of deep time. We began on the familiar sunlit shore of our present world, a place of certainties and known histories. And then we took a single step and plunged into the dark waters of a past 100,000 years gone. A planet that breathed beneath a night sky of a purity we can now only dream. With every meter we descended, the light of our own era dimmed, and the colors around us shifted. We entered the twilight zone of possibility, where forms become uncertain, and intuition must guide the way. It was here that we glimpsed the first outlines of colossal ghosts, the near-intentional angles of Yonaguni defying the logic of erosion, the impossible, continent-spanning geometry of the Eye of the Sahara. We found the echoes of forgotten minds in the bronze gears of an ancient computer, and the echoes in our own souls, the shared, recurring dream of a golden age that haunts the memory of our species. We searched for a chemical trace, a single, anomalous molecule in the planet's ledger that would tell us we were not the first. We descended further still, to the abyssal plane of reality, where the pressure of truth is immense and undeniable. Here, in the profound dark, we found no easy answers, but we found solid ground. We found the scientific permission to ask the question granted by the Silurian Hypothesis. We felt the crushing weight of the cosmic silence in the Fermi Paradox, and we considered the sobering possibility that intelligence may be a great filter that few civilizations survive. We witnessed the awesome, dispassionate weapons of planetary erasure, the fire from the sky and the winter from the volcano. And finally, we were confronted by our own profound ignorance, embodied in the impossible stones of Göbekli Tepe. A monument that reminds us that our knowledge is but a single island in an infinite ocean of mystery. And now, the long, slow ascent begins. We rise from those silent depths. The pressure begins to ease. The profound darkness yields, slowly, to a gentle gloom. We carry back with us no treasures of gold or stone, but a new perspective, a resonance of the deep silence we have just left. The search for tonight is over. All that remains is the meaning. If there is a single, central truth that this journey has offered us, it is that of absolute impermanence. It is the lesson whispered by every ruin on the face of the earth. Think of the poet's traveler who found in the desert the shattered visage of the king Ozymandias, whose empire was so vast he commanded the mighty to despair at his works. But of those works nothing remained, only the lone and level sands stretching far away into the silence. That sand is the final state of all ambition. We can feel this truth in the hollow arches of the Roman Colosseum, where the roar of 100,000 voices has been replaced by the sighing of the wind. We can see it in the serene stone faces of Angkor Wat, where the patient, powerful roots of jungle trees slowly and inexorably reclaim the temples of kings. We see it in the sunken cities of pirates and pharaohs, in the ghost towns of the Silk Road, in the humble, abandoned farmhouses reclaimed by the fields. These are not failures of history. They are demonstrations of the most fundamental law of the universe. That which is built will, in time, be unbuilt. That which is complex will return to simplicity. Perhaps the metaphor of a building is wrong. Perhaps a civilization is not a static structure, but a living organism. It is born from a creative spark in the planetary consciousness. It grows, its cities like cells, its trade routes like a circulatory system, its communication networks like a nervous system. It matures, it creates, it dreams, and then, like all living things, it ages, it falters, and eventually it dies. Its body returns to the earth, its materials recycled, its energy reabsorbed, becoming the soil and the foundation for whatever life will come next. In this view, the end is not a tragedy to be mourned. It is the completion of a cycle. It is nature's way, a silent, graceful, and necessary return to the whole. This connects us to the core of our own human condition in the most intimate way possible. It forces us to look upon our own world, this brilliant, cacophonous, intricate, and achingly fragile moment we call the present hand, to see it not as a final state, but as another of those seasons. One day, the season of our civilization will end. Our vast, interconnected web of information, our art, our music, our science, our deepest philosophical insights will fall silent. The asphalt of our highways will become a strange, dark, carboniferous line in the strata. The concrete foundations of our skyscrapers will be an anomalous type of rock for a future geologist to puzzle over. Our great plastic gears in the oceans will become a thin, toxic layer in the sedimentary record. Our entire story, all our triumphs and follies, will be compressed into a geological sentence, then a single, unintelligible word, and then nothing but silence. To truly know this is not to be cynical, it is to be fully awake. And in this awakening, we find a strange and beautiful empathy that stretches across the eons. We can imagine a person within that lost civilization sitting by a fire, perhaps looking up at these very same constellations, shifted by the slow procession of the stars. We can imagine them feeling the same sense of wonder at their own creations, the same hubris, and perhaps the same quiet, creeping dread of their own impermanence. They are not an alien other. They are our ghosts, our ancestors, our kin in the great and lonely family of beings who have dared to become complex and conscious. We share not just a home, but a destiny. We are all children of a universe that creates and destroys with equal, indifferent, and breathtaking majesty. To understand this is to understand the almost unbearable preciousness of this very moment. The meaning of our existence is not measured by its duration, but by its depth and its intensity. The purpose is not to last forever, but to be brilliantly, consciously, vividly alive right now. We are the living edge of 13.8 billion years of cosmic unfolding. We are the part of the universe that has, for a brief and glorious instant, awakened. We are capable of love, of reason, of art, and of looking back upon the vastness from which we came and asking the question. To be here now, asking that question, is the entire miracle. And so, it is now time, to let these thoughts go. Let the weight of these immense ideas, dissolve. They have served their purpose. They have stretched the boundaries of our wonder. Now, allow them to drift away, like distant galaxies in an expanding universe, beautiful, but remote. Bring your awareness, gently, back to the simple, physical reality of this moment. Feel the gentle, constant pull of gravity, the same patient force that wears down mountains and turns empires into sand. Let it make you feel heavy, supported, and profoundly still. Listen to the rhythm of your own breath, a slow, steady tide, rising, and falling with each long, slow exhale. Imagine you are releasing the complexity of your day. You are erasing the footprints of worry from the quiet shores of your mind. With each deep, soft inhale, you are breathing in the cool, clear, silent peace of the night. This silence is not an absence, it is a presence. It is the silence of the deep past, the silence of interstellar space. It is the canvas upon which all sounds, all thoughts, all civilizations are but a momentary brushstroke of light. Allow yourself to merge with this silence. to become part of its peaceful, eternal, and healing stillness. Sleep is a journey into this very same silence. It is a form of time travel into the landscapes of your own inner world. Your dreams are a kind of personal archaeology, unearthing forgotten memories, strange symbols, and lost feelings from the deep sediment of your own mind. Do not be afraid to let go. The great, slow river of time is here, to carry you. This was another story in the endless river of time, and now let it carry you gently into sleep. Good night, dreamer of ages.